this day and age, 6 seasons doesn't happen a lot for streaming series at all. Obviously, you guys were working on the show much longer than that. So, what does it feel to kind of be like, wow, we really came through this whole journey with Cobra Kai, and now it's all out there?
It's bittersweet. There's parts of it that just feel like, a sense of relief and accomplishment. And there's also this realization that this is a rare thing. You can have hits, but a lot of times they come and go. They don't happen, annually for, 6 or 7 years in a row, especially in this day and age of television. So, if we're lucky enough to have more hits, who's to say they go on this long the way things are today? So it's something that's really special. And at the same time, we feel very confident that us, the cast, the crew are going to be seeing a lot of each other because there's just such close bonds as a result of this process.
Hmm. So, let me get into my spoiler questions. And I'll kind of piggyback on something we talked about when I talked to you for TV Guide, which is you guys talked about how you knew for a long time that it was going to aim towards Johnny back on that mat. I am curious though about the two dojos. Was there discussion? Should it end with one dojo and they're all under one roof, or did it feel, more appropriate that they'd have this bond now, these two guys, but they'd still would have their different philosophies and thus the different dojos?
There was never a scenario where we talked about the two of them having a dojo together where they're training together. There was discussion more so of, is Daniel actually going to continue Miyagi-Do or just sort of move on with his life and be comfortable with Johnny having Cobra Kai? That was the bigger question that we debated. But as we were writing and as we were, as the years were going on, we loved the idea of these two guys who have these two very distinct philosophies are able to coexist together and respect one another. And it's kind of like when a church and a synagogue have like the priest and the rabbi like hold a joint kind of session for people to show that you could have different philosophies and still be well-meaning and have love in your hearts. I think there was sort of this attitude by the end that it was like, let's have them each have their own dojos but share students.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was so interesting what happened with Robbie because, he doesn't get his big tournament win. He's the one who kind of has the rocky ending in a way. So, did you discuss that? Because it had become obviously a thing the fans are going to talk about, like, oh, Robbie never gets the win, never gets the win. Did it feel like, well, someone has to kind of represent that part of the story?
Yeah, well, it wasn't like, well, it fell to you, Robbie.
Right.
Like, it says, poor thing. Like, I don't want, there's a bit of a misconception that we mistreat Robbie. Really, Robbie's a complex character. Robbie, is a character who, like Johnny, grew up feeling kind of abandoned by, his father. And it's only, through the events of Cobra Kai in these past couple of years of school, that bond slowly got built and got strengthened and got to the place it is by the end of the series. And, the story we wanted to tell with Robbie, which, really never wavered, was that he can lose and it will be okay. Because unlike Johnny, that he's not putting all his eggs in this basket as the only thing that matters to him. At that point, certainly at an earlier point in the season, it does feel like that. It feels like this is the end all be all. It's make or break. This is the rest of my life or nothing. And what we wanted to have happen is in the aftermath of that moment, for him to have the healthy outlook that he's earned, because of all the love around him, because of his new bond with his father, because of his bond with, Miguel and the, LaRusso extended family and his girlfriend and everything else and his mother and, everything in his life is better off now and he's going to be okay. And to us, that was the happier, more interesting ending for Robbie rather than, hey, you got a trophy also.
Right, right. And then it was so interesting where things went with Kreese because this is the guy that if you were to say like who's the villain of the entire saga, it would probably be him. Certainly when you look back at those three movies, the first three. So he comes to an interesting realization where he's even saying, it's too late for me to be a good man or a good sensei, but then he does get definitely this very emotional resolution with Johnny, but did it feel like it would still be kind of a hard sell to be like, now they're gonna hang out all the time and he's gonna be like, cool with him for the remainder of his life?
Exactly. It's you know, I think both Kreese and Terry Silver have done enough damage on this planet that they're both like going to hell. But no matter what they do in their last like years on Earth, but Terry Silver's philosophy of that is, okay, well, if there's no chance in heaven, I might as well drag a few other people down to hell with me and go out with like a bang. And that's kind of Kreese's philosophy until the end, where he's like, you know what, I'm going to spend my remaining time here protecting Johnny, that my all those emotional vulnerabilities about Johnny are actually a positive thing and something that he should be proud of, that his student has chosen a different path and worked with the enemy in a different way. And so yeah, we love the idea of him reaching that level of sacrifice, and Johnny on the other end not forgiving him for anything. We don't think that Johnny would trust him with the kids, being a sensei at the dojo ever. But it was important that Johnny not have this hate in his heart towards him, in order for Johnny to take back Cobra Kai, which is what we all want, which is, Johnny just looks good in a black gi with the blonde hair. It's just, he's meant to be there, but it wouldn't be right unless he came to terms with his issues with Kreese. You see in the first episode of the sixth season, he has an opportunity to take Cobra Kai back. Stingray, kind of hands him the keys, so to speak, and he rejects it because he associates it with Kreese. And it's everything that Kreese does, the olive branches that he does put out that actually allow Johnny to make that leap and put the gi back on, which sets everything in motion for the last couple episodes.
I was always impressed by you guys with this show that, you kind of swing to a lot of different tones and make them land. And I feel like Kreese's final scenes are a great example of that, because I was absolutely crying watching that scene with Johnny and Kreese talking about that night in the parking lot. And that's a great example of you taking a specific scene from those movies and putting a very different perspective on it. And that's so emotional. And then Kreese and Silver have like a literal fight to the death that ends in a fiery explosion. Is that kind of like the alchemy of the show? Was it interesting to kind of figure out, wow, we can kind of include all of this into it?
100%. I think, when approaching the show, it's funny because, people talk, is it a comedy? Is it a drama? I think we're trying to just sincerely take these characters through life. And the world that we were brought into was a world where, like, karate in the valley means a lot more than probably in our actual world. And some of these characters were larger than life in certain kinds of ways. And we just really just start from a place of character and take the characters to where we think they would go. And, given Kreese and Silver's beginnings, they met at war, in a really dark place. That in the end, they're two warriors who are going to finish it off. And having the two of them fight on that boat, on that yacht. And it's funny because at the beginning of the season, every year we have to pitch to Sony and Netflix what our plans are for the season.
Right.
And everyone's just like loving it. And we're like, and then there's Silver and Kreese, they're going to fight on a yacht and it's going to explode and all that stuff. And we have a half-hour comedy budget on our show. This is not
A small half-hour comedy.
Yeah, exactly. We've got like 70,000 characters on our show. So we're already stretching things, and we have way more action than any half-hour series has ever had. So when we said we're going to do this fight on a yacht and make it explode, people were unsure and they thought we would back off of it, but we did not.
Kept saying like, we'll revisit that on another time. And I was like, and we'll keep saying yacht. And then they would pitch us house, and we would say like a houseboat, or no, it has to be a yacht. And then they would threaten to take away things from the set so we can't get there. And it's like, well, you're not gonna be able to do that unless you give up this. So we would just give that thing up. And we just started throwing ballast overboard of the show to make sure that we got onto that yacht and delivered upon that promise.
And then at the end of the day, it was like, okay, fine, you got an hour out on the ocean. And
I mean, it was the most terrifying hour that we've ever had.
Everything you see there between them above deck is on the open water, everything on the open water, both with cameras on deck and with drones in the sky and with stunts and all the dialogue. Probably about 90 minutes of shooting. It was a miracle. It was just a miracle.
That's very impressive. Well done. Chosen, got this sort of surprise romance angle in the final season. We end up not seeing Kumiko again. Was there any debate about that? Was it just kind of fun to like see, oh, how can we mix up Chosen in a way we haven't seen before?
there was debate about that. It's kind of the girl next door versus the bad girl with Kumiko and Kim Da-yeon. And, different people were shipping different relationships. And at the end of the day, just the stars aligned with that one direction. We loved their chemistry in the Barcelona scenes. And it helped bring Kim Da-yeon, back at the end, and you kind of see where things are at there, and it leaves open, the possibility of, well, what would that spin-off be like? So we were just into ending Chosen's story in a fun, positive place, given where we met him, kind of like a loner in Okinawa.
You guys are saying you have a certain people don't think about this often when they're watching their shows, but yeah, you have a certain budget. You have to work with those parameters. You already have a large cast. So when you were approaching this final season, and of course you wanted to have returns from important characters, did you have to, I know that there's the version of this show where it ends and every character comes back for a celebratory party, even if it makes no sense for them to be there. But was always like, no, we'll kind of parse that out. And some characters, if we saw them a couple seasons ago, that was a great way to acknowledge them. Did you kind of have to juggle all of that?
Yeah, there's an element of that you're thinking about. We're less driven by the budget when it came to that stuff, and usually have the story moving forward. But because, like you said, you have to. We had 6 seasons of real estate, and you wanted everyone to be showing up in meaningful moments, things that were helping the present day story instead of just a, hey, look who just walked in, it's Elizabeth Shue. It all had to be at the right time, and that really is what led to the decisions that we made.
And we needed the yacht also.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It was an impressive yacht. Okay, who's gonna ask this. I'm sure you've been asking this a lot this week. Hilary Swank, what was, was it ever really possibly going to happen? We were going to always bug you about it. I'm sure we were super annoying everyone over the years.
What I like is we can finally stop giving whatever our stock answer was. Of like, you never know who might show up on the show. I will say, while we were in the writers' room, breaking, the intricacies of the season with its twists and turns, we did reach out to Hilary Swank and her team, and early days talk about why we love Julie Pierce, and the types of just all the love from how we would revisit that character and want to find a meaningful place for her to come back that doesn't just feel like walking in from stage left, it's Hilary Swank. It just the moment wasn't right for her, and we respected that. And we never got deep enough to really, carry forward exactly what that story would be in its, in its fully fleshed out state. So we've kind of, made our peace with that moment. And as we've said before, this is a universe we love, and we hope to be able to revisit in other interesting ways. And that's a great piece of this, tapestry that can potentially coming down the line or not. It's she's her own person as well.
There is a law that's being passed where all Karate Kid Legacy characters must return in reboots.
Oh, good. I didn't know that passed the subcommittee.
Yeah, have to see.
That made it out of the panel.
Yeah,
excellent. But you did your one kind of direct tie to Next Karate Kid in a fun way, which is you kind of addressed a continuity error, which is Miyagi's full name. I went way down a rabbit hole of like a conspiracy theory about that, but I love that you did that. Was that just something where when you see an opportunity like that, you're like, okay, there's this weird discrepancy, let's address it? And should we also think he was using that fake name when he was in the military? Is that something we can ponder?
Well, it's interesting because we actually talked with Robert Mark Heyman, prior to the season. We've been doing that the past bunch of seasons, and we've talked about Miyagi's backstory with him, because we knew that that was going to play a role in the sixth season,
Mhm.
and because we love the idea of that potential spinoff and seeing, what Miyagi's life would be. So if we were going to do any changes or make any moves that that talk about it, we wanted to discuss it with Robert. And that that was, it's clearly there's some miscommunication over the name, Mr. Miyagi's first name, because in the next Karate Kid, his name is Keisuke.
Yeah.
One of the people speaking says his name is Keisuke. In Karate Kid Part 2, when Chosen's holding a sign or someone's holding a sign at the airport as they land in Okinawa, it says Mariyoshi Miyagi. And when we were having to figure out the gravestone in the first season, we were trying to figure out what his name was. And we decided to go Karate Kid 2 over Next Karate Kid because of its place in the entry. But because we're like inheriting everything from the world, we're still trying to make sense out of it. And we've talked about different ways where it could have made sense that people may know him by different names. So we never fully get at that in the show. But that's one of those things that, hey, maybe if we get to delve into his backstory, you'll be able to find out.
Oh, let me ask, because you're mentioning this, we have this new movie coming in this universe, but obviously this show's been a big success. Have there been some conversations about what else in the TV realm could be done in this universe?
We've definitely been talking about things, with our partners at Sony and Netflix, and we'll see. We have a variety of ideas that we're excited about, and the question is, us together figuring out what the right path is. So as soon as we have something that we can announce, we can't wait to. But right now we're just putting in the work, and hopefully we'll have some good news at some point down the road.
Fingers are crossed. I assume you guys, we heard about this new movie kind of early on in the process of you guys working on the final season, and now we know that the 2010 movie is part of the Miyagi verse. I'm sure that was interesting news for you too. But does that just kind of be like, all right, that's just another spectrum of this world now out there?
Yeah, and, we've kind of accepted that in as another branch of this tree. We mentioned Jackie Chan by name in an earlier season. So the actor Jackie Chan exists, in the universe of Cobra Kai. And, this Mr. Han character apparently, knew Miyagi. So we're curious to see, that movie when it's finished and released. And, we're just excited that the Karate Kid universe is alive and well. And this will hopefully show that you can have parallel types of stories that are existing that don't necessarily need to revolve around the Cobra Kai storyline.
I know we're running low on time, so I'll ask about your return characters here, Daryl Vidal and Dennis de Guzman. I love stuff like that, and I'm sure you do too. Is it a chicken and the egg thing of like, well, he has to have a henchman, wait a second, or is it you're watching Karate Kid 3 and you're like, wait, this would be fun?
Well, the moment that we announced that we were doing Karate Kid, half of the actors reached out to us, and we also are hardcore fans of all three of the movies, so we already knew the characters. So it was just a matter of time, and and knowing who's available, when it comes to the some of the supporting characters in the Karate Kid trilogy. But yeah, it's we love ourselves anytime we end up meeting someone from the movies, and there's just a big online community of, you know, the actors who are very active with the fans. And then there's others that just haven't been in it in a while, and you know, like, okay, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get them on board. But the ones that like are tied in, like our characters,
William.
Daryl Vidal and Dennis, you know, those were situations where we were like, okay, we know that they'll say yes. And it's just got to be like the right type of thing.
Well, the great thing about William Christopher Ford is he looks nothing like, you know, how he looked in Karate Kid 3.
Yeah.
So you could actually have him for most of the audience, you know, somebody who's casually seen, you know, Karate Kid 3 once, twice, even 3 times. You're probably not going to, on first blanch, unless you follow him on social media, know that it's him. And for the hardcores who know, they're in on like something beforehand, but we just love his look now. And the fact is, you know, he's a sensei in his own right and is kept with martial arts. And, you know, when you're looking for somebody to play a henchman who knows some karate, like it's standing right there in front of you. And Vidal, you know, we've mentioned him in the past on the show. You know, so Johnny and Tommy talk about Vidal back in season 2. And when you're talking about like, we're gonna, you know, bring in the most impartial ref, it just felt like another piece of, you know, the puzzle that this is the right person at the right time to be on that mat.
Yep, absolutely. Well, guys, it's been a hell of a run. Love the show. I love that I have a Samantha LaRusso Power Ranger figure, and I can have was it fighting Miguel Diaz, and I'm sure that must be surreal for you to see your characters in that realm.
Consumer products explosion, yeah.
But I look forward to whatever's next, and thanks for taking time to talk to me today.
Thanks, Eric.
Always a
Thanks,
pleasure,
man.
Eric.